Hello learners, welcome back to the last module of learning and development in organization. So across these 11 modules we have tried to understand what learning and development is, what is the significance of that, what are the typical benefits of that, what are the problems associated with that, barriers in actually bringing up a growth mindset, a learning mindset within organization. We have looked into the technology, we have looked into what all are the tools, which all are the different aspects. Most of the sessions we have also looked into the world of practice, what are the practical applications of learning and development. So across these 11 modules we have already got a empirical understanding with respect to learning and development in organization. This module is where we look into the future. We are looking into what are the ongoing trends, what are the different significant tools, what are the different, the typical futuristic innovations that can come in. So this module will be all about innovations in learning and development, and typically I'll start today's session by looking into the ongoing trends, looking into the tools and techniques in learning and development in organization. I'm Dr. Cyril Issac. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Business, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Straight away, starting into the topic, we'll look into typically the theme for today's discussion. And that is, the future of learning is personalized, it is digital and embedded in the flow of work. So categorically we have seen all these elements across our discussions in the previous module. The personalized learning, I have dedicated some great many number of hours, especially in our course AI in HRM in the NPTEL platform itself. We have also seen the digital nature of learning and development and how it is embedded in the flow of work in the previous module. Today, I'll look into the ongoing trends and what are the typical innovations that are associated with learning and development. So when you're looking into the shifting role of L&D, the landscape of learning and development has undergone a significant transformation over the past 2 decades. So if you look into the traditional learning and development models, they were rooted more in formal, structured training, often delivered in classroom settings with a focus on compliance, with a focus on technical skills and basic job readiness. So training events were episodic and typically they were reactive to immediate business needs. For example, if there was a particular business requirement coming in, and some people have to be trained based on that, you suddenly make them ready. This was the initial way or the traditional way of learning and development initiatives. When you look into the reactive way, in today's volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous, the VUCA world, this model has totally proven to be insufficient. So the modern L&D paradigm is all about being learner-centric. It is to be digitally enabled, continuous and tightly integrated with business strategy and performance outcomes. The focus therefore has shifted from merely transferring knowledge to building organizational capabilities, driving agility and fostering a culture of lifelong learning. Now let's look into the key drivers of the change that has happened in L&D. The first driver I should really appreciate is the digital transformation. When you talk about digital transformation, the widespread adoption of cloud computing, mobile platforms, AI-powered learning tools and the LXPs, the learning experience platforms, they have refined and redefined how, when and where. Typically, how, when and where learning occurs. So organizations now leverage adaptive learning platforms like micro-learning, AI curated content to personalize development paths. So digital transformation has also made just-in-time learning and learning in flow of work a reality. So this is what the significance of digital transformation is. So it enables personalized, on-demand and micro-learning experience, and it supports learning in the flow of work typically. Now let's look into the second key driver, which is remote and hybrid work. talk about the post-pandemic workplace that has normalized remote and hybrid work. We all agree with that. So it fundamentally altered the way employees learn, the way employees collaborate. So traditional classroom training, if you look into, was being replaced with virtual instructor-led trainer, what we call as VILT. Virtual instructor-led training, asynchronous e-learning, and sometimes there are a lot of collaborative tools such as the Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Miro, etc. So these were some of the modifications that anything that COVID had a positive vibe or positive aspect on, this would have been that. So L&D must now focus on creating distributed learning ecosystems that support engagement, access and community across geographies. The third important aspect is skills shortages and reskilling imperatives. So if you look into the World Economic Forum report 2020, over 50% of all employees will need reskilling by 2025, and that is already happening due to the impact of automation and emerging technologies. So organizations face a critical need to build future-ready skills. It could include data literacy, it could include digital communication and problem solving. So L&D is now a strategic function in closing the skill gaps, enhancing talent mobility and future-proofing the workforce. The fourth significant driver of change in L&D would be the generational shift in expectations. Millennials and Gen Z employees bring different learning preferences and work expectations. They value on-demand, mobile learning, iterative content, social learning, and opportunities for personal growth and purpose. So this shift requires L&D to move from rigid training calendars to dynamic user-controlled learning journeys. The fifth aspect would be the rise of the continuous learning culture. Rise of the continuous learning culture. Learning is no longer a one-time event, but an ongoing process embedded into work and life. So organizations are fostering cultures where continuous development, experimentation, and self-directed learning are normalized and rewarded. So leaders play a critical role in modeling learning behaviors and supporting the team development altogether. So this is where I say learning is the new working. I take the words of Josh Bersin and I reiterate that learning is the new working. Now let's understand how we transfer from training to capability building. So in this evolved paradigm, learning and development is no longer a peripheral HR function. It is a strategic partner in driving business transformation, enhancing employee engagement, and building organizational resilience. So learning and development professionals must shift from being training providers to consultants to designers, facilitators, and culture architects. We look into the traditional L&D, you see that there was more of a classroom-based training. It was more focused on knowledge transfer. It was more of a one-size-fits-all program. It was more episodic, more reactive, as I already mentioned. It was instructor coming as an expert. When you look into the modern L&D process in comparison, where you had the classroom-based training, you are seeing more of digital, hybrid, and experiential learning. When you are looking into the knowledge transfer as a focus in traditional L&D, what you are seeing today is performance and capability development. When you talk about one-size-fits-all program, what you see is personalized, data-driven, and learner-led journeys. When you talk about episodic and reactive journeys, you are looking into continuous, proactive, and agile, practices. You look into instructor as expert, L&D as facilitator and curator is what the modern learning and development suggests. You look into the current trends in learning and development. This is something which we have categorically discussed again. The world of work is undergoing a rapid transformation, and learning and development is evolving in response to shifting organizational needs, emerging technologies, and workforce expectations. So staying current with the latest trends is vital for L&D professionals to design impactful, future-ready learning strategies. So you look into the personalized learning paths, you look into modern learners, they expect content that is relevant, that is adaptive, and that is timely. So AI-driven platforms now enable personalized learning journeys based on individual roles, performance data, career aspirations, and typically the learning history altogether. So you see that there is a possibility of adaptive algorithms assessing the skill gaps and recommend content dynamically as per Nawaz and Gomes 2022. If you have the time and bandwidth, as I always suggest, go and read this paper, a wonderful paper looking into adaptive algorithms that can assess skill gaps and that recommend content dynamically. It states that examples could be LinkedIn Learning and the AI curation associated with that. What we do now in terms of NPTEL or Coursera skill sets, degrees, role-based content, all these are typical examples of personalized learning paths. Why it matters? If you ask me, I would say personalization increases engagement, it increases relevance, and it increases knowledge application. The second important trend that we see today is micro-learning. Micro-learning delivers bite-sized content typically under 10 minutes. So it focuses on the typical learning objectives. And if you look into this micro-learning, it is ideal for mobile consumption, just-in-time learning and reinforcement. It includes videos, it includes infographics, it includes quizzes and short tutorials. There are studies that show micro-learning improves knowledge retention and learning efficiency. So why it matters? The answer to the question would be that it supports flexible, it supports self-paced learning in a busy, fast-paced work environment. You look into the digital learning platforms and LMS integration, organizations are adopting advanced learning management systems and learning experience platforms to streamline, to track and enhance the learning experiences. So tools like, let's say, Coursera for Business or Moodle or Edcast and SAP Litmos, they provide seamless learning delivery. So LMS platforms now integrate more with the workplace tools, be it Slack, be it Microsoft Teams or Salesforce. Why it matters? It blends learning into daily workflows, reducing learning friction and supports continuous development. Other significant trend that you see today is the soft skill and emotional intelligence element. With automation and AI taking over routine tasks, mundane tasks, human-centric skills are becoming critical differentiators. Top in demand, soft skills, be it communication, be it adaptability, be it emotional intelligence, collaboration and critical thinking, they are all emerging to be the top in demand soft skills, and this is as per the LinkedIn Learning Report 2023. L&D is shifting focus in experiential learning, coaching and scenario-based training to build these competencies. Why it matters? The answer to the question would be soft skills are vital. They are essential for leadership. They are essential for team effectiveness, and they are vital for navigating the change. You look into the current trends in learning and development, I would say learning in the flow of work is also important. Popularized by Josh Berzin, this approach integrates learning seamlessly into work environment. So examples like on-screen guidance in tools like Salesforce, contextual training pop-ups, Slack boards, delivering tips. So this typically enables employees to learn without leaving their workflow. Why it matters? I would say it reduces time to skill and increases learning relevance at the point of need. When we look into the current trends in learning and development, the sixth element would be categorically the upskilling and the reskilling initiatives. With the fourth industrial revolution, organizations are investing heavily in future-proofing their workforce. So let's say this example of Amazon, upskilling 2025, 700 million USD invested to train 100,000 workers. So government partnerships are also there for digital literacy and tech readiness. So the focus area essentially are digital skills, they are data literacy, they are cyber security, and they are the green skills. Why it matters? Typically my answer would be it addresses talent shortages, it boosts employability and supports internal mobility altogether. You look into the learning experience platforms, LXPs. Unlike the traditional LMS, LXPs focus on learner autonomy, on engagement and social learning. So this learning experience platforms, LXPs, like Degreed, Edcast, Fuse, they offer curated learning paths, AI suggestions and community features. So they emphasize video-based, peer-generated and self-directed learning. Why it matters? It enhances learner ownership and encourages the knowledge sharing. Now let's work for a synthesis. Let's understand the synthesis where we look into a shift from control to enablement, where we chase the old paradigm and how the emerging paradigm is bringing out different changes. We had the instructor-led training, moving to the learner-driven learning. We had the standardized content, moving to personalized AI curated content. We had the classroom learning management systems now taking turns towards multi-channel delivery, the LXPs, be it mobile, social, etc. The focus on skills is being changed to the focus on holistic capabilities, and episodic learning is getting transformed to continuous embedded learning. So let's understand the emerging approaches that are used in L&D delivery. We see this, or we analyze this according to different parameters in terms of the approach, definition and typically why it matters. You look into these emerging approaches in learning and development delivery as organizations seek to stay competitive and agile. Learning and development strategies are evolving to include more dynamic, personalized and technology-driven approaches. So these emerging delivery methods go beyond the traditional training and they foster a culture of continuous, impactful training. So the first and the foremost one is blended and hybrid learning. When you talk about blended and hybrid learning, you understand this, but still I repeat, it combines online digital media with traditional face-to-face instruction, offering the best of the both worlds. So what happens here is that since it allows best of both the worlds, it allows learners to control pace, time and place of learning. So that facilitates flexibility for remote and global teams. Remote and global teams. So it encourages both synchronous and asynchronous participation. Why it matters? The answer would be simple. It enhances accessibility. It enhances the engagement and the learning flexibility for diverse and remote learners. You look into the gamification and game-based learning. So gamification, we have seen, it adds game elements like points, levels, badges. Game elements are being added so that the learning is enhanced, while game-based learning uses actual games or simulations to teach. I repeat, gamification adds game-like elements, right? Elements of the game like points, levels, badges, etc., while game-based learning uses actual games or simulations to teach. So it increases learner motivation and task persistence. It encourages healthy competition and reward-based engagement. It is common in compliance training, sales enablement and onboarding. And if you ask me why it matters, I would categorically say that it transforms passive learning into active, enjoyable experiences that improve retention. Let's look into the social and collaborative learning now. Learning that occurs through interaction with peers, including mentoring, discussion forums, group projects, and the communities of practice. So it emphasizes knowledge sharing and collective problem solving. And if you ask me, it encourages even informal learning and builds organizational memory. Why it matters? That's more critical. it strengthens the engagement, and it builds a learning culture through peer support. Let's now look into the buzzword AI and learning analytics. AI and learning analytics. AI is transforming L&D by delivering smart, personalized and predictive learning experiences. So what we understand with respect to AI and learning analytics is that it uses predictive analytics to identify learners at risk and suggested targeted interventions. As I already indicated, there's a full module where we discussed on AI and different learning methods. We have categorically looked into different tools also in the AI in HRM course that runs in the NPTEL platform. When you look into this AI and learning analytics, coming back to the discussion, please note it creates adaptive learning paths based on performance, based on goals and preferences. It tracks and analyzes engagement, learning pace and outcomes in real time. So why it matters? It enables data-driven decision making and continuous improvement in the learning design. We come into the VR, virtual reality and augmented reality world. Immersive learning environments created through VR, AR technologies offer realistic simulations and situational learning. So it is common in high-risk sectors like aviation, medicine, manufacturing. So it supports experimental learning. If you have gone through the COPE's learning cycle, experience, reflect, conceptualize and apply. So it supports experiential learning aligned with the COPE's learning cycle. Why it matters? The answer would be it reduces the training risk, it enhances the retention and builds muscle memory through realistic practice. Then you have coaching and mentorship programs. Structure relationships that support skill development, career progression and leadership grooming is what we get through coaching and mentoring or mentorship programs. So when you are looking into coaching and mentorship programs, it encourages personalized learning journeys, often delivered through formal programs or digital mentoring platforms. It reinforces soft skills, decision making and self-awareness. And why it matters? It fosters long-term development, especially in leadership pipelines and talent succession. Self-directed and lifelong learning is yet another impactful aspect or emerging approach. So typically we see that it encourages learners to take ownership of their learning journeys by choosing what, how and when to learn. Supported by on-demand content libraries, MOOCs and micro-credentials. So it aligns with the shift towards knowledge economies and portfolio careers. Why it matters? It cultivates autonomy, it cultivates adaptability and a typical growth mindset. So when we compare between the traditional and emerging L&D approaches, and this is what the entire synthesis of this particular session would be. Please note, in the traditional mundane type of learning and development initiative, what we saw was more of classroom-based instruction. We looked into more of traditional one-to-many classroom-based instruction method, classroom-based instruction method. So right now, what is emerging is more of a blended, more of a hybrid and the digital-first approach. When you look into the content part, it was more of a static content that was delivered. Now it has changed its style, ways and means. Now it is more adaptive. More AI curated learning paths are coming into picture. From one-way delivery in the traditional and mundane learning and development initiatives, you are now seeing more social, more interactive and more collaborative approaches. From the generic curriculum that was set, one set, it is for maybe some years it will be running. From that generic curriculum, it is now personalized and performance aligned. And periodic sessions have changed to continuous in the flow learning options. And the focus has dramatically shifted from hard skills, and now the emphasis is on human and leadership capabilities. So typically, if you understand what we have tried to narrate here is the changing ways and means of learning and development. Look into the traditional way, it was more of one size fits for all. There's a learning initiative that has been taken up by an organization. It is being disseminated. Everybody has to do it. There are some modules that you have to be covering that. And once you cover, you get some certification, or you have to get some mandate, or some mandatory provisions are there to actually complete it. That was more traditional. Now the organizations tend to analyze you. The training need analysis, the particular need that you have. Let's say emerging technology, a machine is coming. You are not capable to work on that. Some requirement, some training, some learning requirement on that. You are being assigned that. Or maybe some other technology is coming and you are being given a chance to learn something. Or you are being given a chance to go abroad and do some hands-on experiment, or hands-on training, hands-on research on something. So when you talk about what this evolution is underscoring, it is just underlining one thing: personalization. When it was traditional method, it was more generic, as I've already mentioned. When it was traditional and mundane, it was, we don't care what is the outcome. We are here just to give the training, we give the, initiate the learning process. It is up to you. But that is not the case now. When you talk about innovations in learning and development initiatives, at the core of all the innovations lies what is known as personalization. What is your need might be different from what is the need of the person sitting next to you, or your co-employee, or your co-worker. This is what signifies the learning and development innovations that are happening in today's world. So ladies and gentlemen, before concluding, please note this: look into your organization, introspect within yourself. Are you going through the change of personalization? You don't need a generic training program. You don't need a generic learning platform or learning management system. What you want is specific to your needs. What is your job demanding? What is your task up to? Or what is your task demanding? Or what is your group demanding? Based on that, are you getting the required learning and development initiative? This is what the question you have to ask to you. This is what the question you have to ask to your organization. Thank you for listening to me patiently. See you in the next class with more details about the innovations that are happening in the learning and development paradigm. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.